Today is Monday, August 10th, 2020. This is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. So the main agenda for today is to go down our 119 sidecar releases and check on the status of that. So let's see, this morning there is a PR open on the node driver registrar to help make the registration socket creation reconciling. So there's a PR out to do that with a liveness probe. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. Let's see, migrating the images. So my PR is ready to merge, but it's waiting for the 119 code thaw to happen. I guess I need to sync up with the release team and see if we can target this one directly to 119, since we'll want to backport this anyway.
My understanding is that there's currently no difference. They are still merging into master and fast forwarding the release branch.
Yes, that's correct. But we need to get someone on the release team to approve that this PR should go directly into 119.
Yeah, that's why it's not currently not merging. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. All right, and next up is the storage capacity tracking.
Yeah, it's making progress. The external provisioner is working in a local test cluster setup now. So I updated the RBAC rules. That was one remaining issue. I've addressed all of the to-dos that I made for myself in the code, and Jan left some review comments today that I also addressed. I think the one open that I have in the PR is around this thing that I mentioned last week with skipping storage classes that are not using late binding. That still needs to be done. But otherwise, it's coming together.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much. We'll skip over that. On the Windows front, I think there's been some steady progress there. I think there's a couple of APIs that are still in the process of moving to the beta APIs. Otherwise, I think it's on track. Next up is volume health.
Yeah, so there is a PR submitted to send events to pod. So I will take a look of that. That's the main PR that we're waiting for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Snapshots.
Yeah, snapshots. So I think we will try to get that webhook cap merged. So I will take another look and see if there's anything else outstanding. And I think Andy is also implementing it on track, I believe. And the other one is the Move API generate client. I think that one, there are some weird things that like we both tried. So I tried Kartik's PR. I run the script, I get different results from what he got. So I need to find something else to try this out and see why that every time I run it, I have a V2 photo generated, but he said he did not. So I need to get someone else to help. So this, there is your, I wonder if you are one of your coworker who was looking at the snapshots related stuff. I don't know if he's still available to help out.
Oh, okay.
Psycat?
Yeah, I'll ask him and see if he's free.
Okay, so basically If he's free, ask him to be me, because I just want him to download that PR and try and see if we are getting the same results. And another thing is right now, I think the PR that Kartik submitted still depends on this code generator, which is under the vendors to run it. So I'm thinking we shouldn't be dependent on vendor anymore, right? We still have it, but I think we shouldn't be depending on that. So I'm thinking of just running this like outside. Just download that code generator and run it separately rather than assuming that it's definitely in the vendor directory.
Okay, I mean, I guess that's fine. There's nothing actually in the controllers that's using it, right? This is
No,
really just like a tool that you run outside to generate the code.
Yeah. It's just outside. Yeah, we run it ahead of time, right? So controller does not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we shouldn't depend on the vendor.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
If like the actual controller sidecar is not using it, I think it's fine to download it separately.
Okay, yeah, as long as we just document it. Yeah, because this is another project that I'm working on, so that's what we do. So, okay. Oh, another thing I want to ask is, I think I noticed this someone was reported something saying that the event didn't get generated. So I see that actually it was trying to update the status with that failure. But the thing is, we are once the status update fails, because sometimes because got some conflict version, and then it just skipped the event, and then there was actually even a comment there saying if the status update didn't get through, we just don't log the event. That seems to be wrong, isn't it? The only reason that we should always log the event. Can we just log the event first and then try to update status later? I mean, if they failed, it will go to you retry, of course. But I mean, even if the first fail, we should always get the event out.
I think that makes sense. I don't see why the status and the event have to be in sync.
Yeah.
The other thing that might help with some of these like update conflict errors is to use patch instead of update.
Yeah, so we should probably maybe I will log an issue for that. So that's something that we need to do for the enhancement.
Yeah, that would probably reduce the number of like update failures.
Yeah, I see that the resets do that a lot. Okay, sure. Okay, we'll try that.
Yeah, I think we tried most of our sidecars. I think we changed from using update and we tried to use patch whenever possible.
Okay. Okay, then I will add an open issue for that. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome, thank you. And last is volume expansion. Is Hemant here?
Yeah, I'm here. So we are basically waiting for the CSI timeout change for the external resizer release. I was thinking that I would not want to rename the CSI timeout parameter and make it mandatory in the same release. Maybe we should rename it to timeout. We can rename it to timeout in this release and then remove it later. So I was saying I left a comment on the PR for Humble that the timeout should be increased to 80 seconds. I don't know if I think the 80 second as a default from 15 second makes more sense to me, because that will allow us to, like for most cloud providers, that's a good value.
Mm-hmm. Why 80 and not 90 or 120?
120 is, I think, is too long, but yeah, but for most cloud providers, less than a minute, something between 1 to 2 minutes is fine. But if you want to make
I guess so. If we want to change the defaults here, do we want to change it on all the sidecars too?
what's the expected timeout for the provisioner, a volume
Right now
provisioner?
it's 10.
Yeah, but what is it on average? Like, how much time does it, like, for example, like EVS, GCPD, Cinder take generally, or like vSphere does it take?
I think with GCP, we recently increased the timeout to like 80 or 90 or maybe 70. I don't remember. And I think Xing, you mentioned the vSphere one is set to like 90 or something like that.
I'm sorry, the timeout?
Yeah, on the provisioner.
I think it's 5 minutes, I believe. That's like 300.
Oh, it's more.
I think. I can double check. Yeah, I think it's actually pretty long.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is that like every single plugin has their own sort of timeout values. So I don't know, like, would there be a good default that works for a lot of them? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, so if you want to make it mandatory, we should, because we are renaming the flag and making it mandatory in the same release. So it makes like if somebody wants to pull this sidecar, is like right now, if nobody is not specifying this parameter, they pull this update, they're fine. They're not broken by default.
Yeah, but that's why we're incrementing the major version, right? To tell people that, hey, something has changed and you might need to do something different.
Yeah, for us in OpenShift, I was saying like it's a bit of a problem, like inconvenience, not a big deal. We could work around it. But if we make this mandatory, then the first thing that will happen is that when we rebase, the resizer changes into our like version of resizer that we ship, and that PR will be like will not pass, because now that the version that PR will use, the external resizer will be one built from the PR, and that version will require timeout parameter, and our CI jobs don't set it. Now, if I go and update in the CI jobs beforehand, making the change, then the CI jobs will start to fail because the timeout parameter does not exist yet. So, yeah.
I guess, like, wouldn't this be an issue with any potential breaking change that we make to the sidecars?
Not any. Some sidecars, some changes are like can be introduced in more saner way than the others. Like for example, if we do have a timeout parameter now, and
Like, I guess, like,
we
like an external provisioner, so far we've made quite a few breaking changes to our flags.
I'm just trying
And
to like for example, if the timeout parameter exists as in timeout with the flag timeout, and we made it mandatory, it'll be easy, because then we can fix the CI jobs, and then we can merge then like the rebase PR will work, because like it's mandatory, and the PR makes it mandatory, and we already have that parameter in our CI jobs. But renaming the parameter and making it mandatory in the same release is bit of a problem. We can fix it if we want it, but I think other users will also run into similar issues. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you off.
In Provisioner, we always kept the old option deprecated but working for one release, and the updates were easier.
okay, I mean, that makes sense. If you want to stagger this over a couple releases, that's fine. I guess so, but the other question is do we want to potentially change the default timeouts on all the sidecars, or make them, instead of having a default, make them mandatory?
we can change the default to, I think, in other sidecars too, but mandatory other sidecars can be done, but with resizer, because we are also introducing the parameter for the first time, like the timeout, it was called CSI timeout, now we are renaming it. It's a bit tricky. So we can make it mandatory. I don't, it just means like people will have to update it, but it's fine. So do you want to do it at the same time? That's my question. If you're going to make it mandatory, maybe it's worth doing in the next release when resizer also makes it mandatory rather than doing it for other sidecars now.
I mean, I'm fine either way. If you think introducing it and then staggering it over 2 releases is fine, then we can do that. It just means you need to bump the major version twice in a row.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's fine, I think. So I would, so do we agree to changing the timeout to like 80 second and 90 second? 80 second is default in all the sidecars. And then considering like making it mandatory in the next release.
I guess like I'm just not sure like why 80? It seems like we're just picking a number out of the air.
Yeah, I mean, it's same as like how the work queue, this thing, the parallel worker thing is decided 10 or something. I think the default is. We have to pick a number if we're going to default. The default 10 second is not very useful.
Well, one advantage of having a short timeout is that it reveals idempotency bugs in the driver. That's one advantage of having a short timeout.
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw your comment that we should maybe like keep this, the timeout shorter in our CI jobs so that we can keep catching the idempotency bug. Like for example, the EBS drivers expansion, controller expand volume is not idempotent. So we can, yeah, but we had to update all the CI jobs.
Yeah, I would be in favor of, I guess, keeping the default timeout short so that it does expose these bugs, and then then a driver can decide for production to raise those values based off of their findings.
Okay. I think that's fine. That's fine. No problem. I think so. 10 second is the default. We'll just stick to it. The resizer had 15 second for some reason, and Humble already has 10 second PR in the PR. So okay.
All right, sounds good. Was that the only thing left in the resizer?
For this release at least, yeah. But I plan to schedule a call this week for other next release planning. But for this release, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, going back to our sidecar list. Do we have any sidecars that are ready for release? Or almost ready? I think Provisioner, I'm mostly waiting on the capacity changes. Is there anything left in the attacher that we're waiting on?
I don't think so. I don't remember anything on top of my head.
There was one fix for the list volumes thing.
Yeah, I think it, oh, I don't remember. I will check.
Do we have decided which Go version we want to use?
It's a good question.
We had this discussion on Slack, and it went back and forth a little bit between 1.14 and 1.15. I'm currently, given the arguments in Kubernetes itself, I'm currently leaning towards 1.15 because I read up on what made Kubernetes skip 1.14. It's a runtime issue where signal handling has changed, and it may or may not have an effect, but 1.15 mitigates that effect by changing also the runtime of a standard library. So it's reading on about that made me think that 1.15 might be a better choice, but I'm certainly open for other opinions.
That seems reasonable to me. I think apparently the Docker project has also decided to skip 1.14. I think just this on Friday or so, the Kubernetes jobs were switched to use the 1.15 RC2, I think. So we can see how those tests go. If if it looks good from the Kubernetes side, then I think we can just to update it as well.
Yeah, if there are pre-built Go toolchain archives, yeah, there are unstable versions. There is the usual download file that we need in our job. So switching isn't that hard. It's usual CSI release tools update, and Humble actually has one pending for 1.14 right now. But then making that change is simple. We just need to roll out and potentially update our Go mod files, perhaps. But that's something that will show up. So I can do that once we agree that 1.15 RC2 is what we want to use.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with 1.15. I guess, do we want to do an RC2 or do we want to wait for the actual 1.15?
That's a good question. I don't remember when 1.15 comes out. Is it still before our next releases?
I don't know where to find that information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will have to follow up and see when they expect 1.15 to be released.
It might if we decide we want to go with 1.15, I think it makes sense to switch to 1.15 RC2 now to give us some time to look out for test regressions. And
Okay.
if there's still time, we can always do another update to 1.15 final.
All right, that seems reasonable.
Okay.
So is that something you are going to have time to work on?
I can certainly kick off the CSI release tools update and then do the update of the different
awesome.
repos. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Speaking of the repo updates, we talked about, or we had one person for, I think it was one of the CSI drivers, proposed that we use squashing when importing the subtree. So in the meantime, we have made sure that we update that the scripts that I'm using for updating all the repos, that this uses squashing and still has reasonable information in the pull request description. So expect the next round of CSI release tools updates to be with squashing. Unless someone has serious objections now. But the advantage is that we don't get additional commits in the repo.
I think that seems reasonable to me.
And then we'll go ahead with that.
Cool, thank you. Let's see, we went over all of these already. Liveness probe, Jan, was there still anything we're waiting for there?
There is one PR in progress, which should be ready for review. I will look at it today or tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. And then I think we talked about Health Monitor. I have not taken a look at CSI test. I will go ahead and do that today and see if that's ready. All right. Any other topics that anyone wants to discuss? All right, then we'll end for today. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.